The Rorschach test has been used for decades as a tool in psychology. Each one is carefully crafted to, just kidding, it's actually North Carolina's first electoral district pasted back to back. Now, the history of American politics is filled with a genuinely unfortunate number of controversies. But one that pops up time and time again around November is the issue of gerrymandering.
The Supreme Court heard arguments Wednesday in a redistricting case that could have historic implications for future elections.
Voters in Pennsylvania are getting ready to go to the polls tomorrow in primary elections that are being contested under a new controversial districting system.
Another gerrymandering case front and center here at the Supreme Court this morning.
What is gerrymandering? When did it start? Why is it an issue today? And most importantly, how much does it weigh? According to Britannica, gerrymandering is drawing the boundaries of electoral districts in a way that gives one party an unfair advantage over its rivals. Although this practice unfortunately did not start with a guy named Gerrymander, it was named after a person. Gerrymandering got its modern name from Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry. In 1812, he was behind an effort to redraw the state senatorial district of Essex County in New York to favor the Democratic Republicans over the Federalist Party. And it worked, too. The new district sent 3 Democratic Republicans to the state Senate, as opposed to the 0 they had sent the previous election cycle. People caught on pretty quickly to the political machinations, though. The new district was so ridiculous looking, it resembled a salamander, hence leading to the term gerrymander. But gerrymandering had been around long before Elbridge Gerry made it famous. According to historian Thomas Rogers Hunter, Patrick Henry, that's right, give me liberty or give me death Patrick Henry, was actually the first known gerrymanderer. Good old Patrick intentionally redrew Virginia's 5th congressional district so that his mortal enemy and our future president James Madison would lose his election. Gerrymandering even affected how new states were incorporated into the Union. In 1889, the Dakota Territories became the states of North and South Dakota. This split was intentionally designed by Republicans to increase the number of votes they'd have in the Electoral College, since each state has a bare minimum of 3 electors, 2 senators and 1 House representative. Now that we've established the history of gerrymandering, we can take a closer look at the current controversies surrounding the issue. There are 2 types of gerrymandering in today's world, known as packing and cracking. Packing is when the districtors put the majority of one party's supporters in one single district, in order to let the other party win all the other elections. Cracking is when the districtors divide up another party's power base in order to make sure that they can't reach a majority in any one district, even though they may receive the majority of the popular vote overall. Gerrymandering may seem like a minor evil, especially when compared to the other issues present in mainstream politics, but at its heart, gerrymandering undermines the most basic principles of democracy upon which this country was built. When politicians gerrymander a district, they violate the principle of electoral apportionment. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, electoral apportionment is the principle that we use to divvy up seats in the House of Representatives. Electoral apportionment has 2 basic requirements for an electoral district. It has to be compact and contiguous, meaning it has to be one connected landmass, and it has to have roughly the same number of constituents or voters as every other congressional district. The number of constituents in each district is determined by the decennial census, which means every 10 years for those who are wondering. This is the fundamental dilemma of gerrymandering, and one of the reasons why it has survived for so many years. We need to conduct a census every 10 years to make sure the district's populations haven't grown out of control, and so that we maintain accurate representation. But the need to redistrict creates the opportunity for the party in power to set themselves up for further victories with gerrymandering. The Supreme Court has even had to step in once or twice to fix exceptionally bad cases of gerrymandering. In 1964, the Supreme Court required the state of Georgia to make all of its electoral districts equal in population, ending the gerrymandered districts present there. Gerrymandered districts also limit the rights of the people who live in them. If you're a conservative living in a district gerrymandered to always elect a liberal politician, and vice versa, there is a case to be made that your right to representation in the government is being intentionally infringed upon. It has also been claimed that gerrymandering increases bipartisanship and allows for more radical politicians to be elected. Let's look at a hypothetical here. Say a politician is elected from a 50% Republican and 50% Democrat district. That politician would have to remain responsive to both halves of their constituency, or risk not getting reelected. Now, in a 20% Democrat and 80% Republican district, that same politician would not have to do anything to represent that 20% of their constituency. They can effectively completely ignore their wants and needs, and only focus on the 80% Republicans who put them into office. By that same token, gerrymandering allows for radical politicians from the right or left to be elected. In a moderate, or an evenly split electoral district, a political candidate would have to stay away from the radical right or left in order to get swing votes to propel them to a majority. But if a district is gerrymandered, a politician who radicalizes to the side that the district was gerrymandered to will do better than a moderate candidate. Both of these consequences of gerrymandering destabilize our system of government, and leads to districts like the infamous goofy-kicking Donald Duck district right here in Pennsylvania. Gerrymandering has become even easier in recent years, due to modern technologies being adapted to more accurately predict the election outcomes of new districts. This puts the party in power in an even greater position to gerrymander districts, since they're able to do it in the most mathematically effective way possible. Gerrymandering is an unfortunately unique beast to examine. See, the public has been aware of it and all of its evils for literally hundreds of years at this point, and yet we still have gerrymandering. Is nothing being done to stop it? The answer is, as these things so very often are, more complicated than you might think. While American politics has descended into a rather partisan nightmare of late, according to a 2018 report by the Boston Globe, one thing that both sides of the aisle can agree on is that they hate gerrymandering. This past election, the 5 states that held referendums on redrawing gerrymandered districts, Colorado, Michigan, Missouri, Utah, and Ohio, all saw them pass with tremendous bipartisan support. Remember earlier when we mentioned the decennial census and how each new census is used to redraw the districts? Well, if the census is held every 10 years, that would mean we're just 2 years away from the next census. 2020 will be a benchmark year in the war against gerrymandering. More steps have been taken in the past 10 years than ever before to end gerrymandering. Courts have ruled against it, districts have been voted on by the people to be redrawn, and the power has been taken away from politicians in certain states and given to a third, hopefully unbiased party. But will it be enough?
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Let's be brutally honest here, guys. It probably won't be. Gerrymandering cases have been brought up for decades, but there are a myriad of problems in getting true, bipartisan changes to gerrymandering. First, any legal case against gerrymandering is typically brought by the opposing or losing side. Second, finding the mythical unbiased human is impossible, seeing as they don't exist. No matter who draws the electoral boundaries, the person doing it is going to have bias in one way or another. The question is simply how large the manifestation of that bias is. Third, it is very hard to actually prove that a district is gerrymandered, due to the incredibly vague requirements for making a district in the first place. Fourth, the temptation to gerrymander is evidently very difficult to resist, and will likely increase as we descend into Machiavellian power politics, where the ends justify the means and the good of the party always comes first. And finally, fifth, until a federal law is passed clarifying the definition of gerrymandering, it will remain up to the states to regulate, and even then, the most they can do is hand the redistricting responsibility off to a neutral third party. I suppose it all comes down to 2020. As cliche as that may sound, the 2020 redistricting will serve as definitive proof as to whether or not the measures taken to end gerrymandering have been effective. Until then, we can hold all the good sentiments we want on the issue, but we just simply don't know.